Welcome to Garden Delights. I'm Susan Howington, Family Consumer Science Agent with the Henry County Cooperative Extension, partnership with the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension. Today we're going to talk about apples, and Frank is going to tell us more about apples and how to grow them on those trees. So we'll see you back in just a little bit on Garden Delights. Welcome back to Garden Delights. Today we're talking about apples, and it's in season, and gosh, when they're out there, try to buy some. So let's talk about these lovely little apples that we have here. You know, there's different types of apples for different types of baking, or the kind that you just want to pick up and crunch on. And so have them at your house, especially when they're in season, because now they're in season, and to me, they can't taste any better when they're in season. Nutritional wise, loaded with fiber, but that means you need to eat the skin too. If you can do it, eat the skin also, because you're going to get more fiber from it. Loaded with vitamin C, potassium, saturated and fat-free, also sodium-free, cholesterol-free, so it's a juicy little thing to eat. About a medium apple, and this is about what a medium apple would look like, it's about 80 calories, give or take. So you can see that's a great nutritional fruit to eat for not a whole lot of calories. Selection, when you're selecting your apples, you want to make sure that you are picking some that are firm. So when you're picking them up, look for firm apples. Look for no blemishes as far as bruises or dents in them, because remember, other people are going to be touching those apples at the grocery store. So we've got to wash them, you know, when you get them home. But you want to look through them. And also, I'm really funny about, too, making sure that stem is intact. Because that tells me that you can see the stem, and you can also see the green part of it, so you know it's fresh. So buy the apples when they're fresh. Now, storage-wise, apples can store a good long time. They can, you can keep them on your counter for 3 to 4 weeks, depending if you have a cool, dry place to put them in. If you don't, you may want to put them in your refrigerator. And once you put them into your refrigerator, they're going to take away, to me, some of the taste of that good old apple. But they can set out, and they freeze wonderfully. So if you are not going to eat that apple, and somebody gave you a bunch of apples from a tree, you want to see what you want to do with them pretty quick, like freeze them or eat them or bake with them and freeze them later. So they do freeze well, but I will tell you that once they hit the air, they're going to have that antioxidant part of it, and they're going to turn that brown color. But they are awesome to eat. Have them out on a counter, because it's great, because people will grab them and go if you have them out for them. So put an apple in that lunch the next time you're out. When people are trying to make different things, they're wondering how many apples will make about a pound. So about 3 medium apples, which is what you see here, is going to be about a pound of apples. So if you're trying to bake something, you're looking for the poundage, about 3 medium is what you're going to be looking for. So when we come back, we'll hear from Frank. He's going to be talking about those fruit trees and apple trees, and telling you more information about how to grow a great apple tree. And we'll come back from there and make a great muffin for you next. So we'll see you back in just a little bit on Garden Delights.
Okay, today we're going to talk about apples. Apples are a little more complex than anything we've talked about so far. There's a lot of things you need to know if you're going to grow apples, especially in this part of Georgia. They don't grow true to form. If you try to plant apple seeds like Johnny Appleseed did, the apples you get will not be the same as the ones on the tree. There is some possibility you might get some that are good, but the bigger probability is you will not get some that are good. And so planting from seed is not generally done at all. They are propagated, that they get the varieties that they want to get the good apples from. They'll take the scion wood, which is the apple bearing part of the tree. They will match that up with a root stock, that is suitable to grow the tree. So in selecting apples to grow in this part of Georgia, you need to pay attention to rootstocks. You need to pay attention to the scion wood that's being used. The University of Georgia has got a very good brochure that you need to become familiar with, or you can come by the office and get one of them. And it goes through all of the things you need to do to grow apples, including it shows you the apple zones in Georgia, which we are in apple zone number 3, and it also suggests some varieties that grow well in which region of the state. So if you select an apple that grows really good in North Georgia and it's not good for this region, you're not going to have good luck. Same thing, some of these apples grow way down in South Georgia and they are also not going to grow well here. One of the main things that we need to look at as we select apple varieties is disease resistant. We have lots of problems with fire blight. This tree I'm standing beside has had some fire blight on it this year, and you're going to have fire blight. So when you're selecting trees for this area, fire blight resistant is important. Apple scab is another one that's important. Cedar apple rust resistance. We have a lot of cedar apple rust. You know, if you read about cedar apple rust, you'll see that people want to grow. They don't want to have any cedar trees within a mile of their apple orchard. Well, good luck on that in this area. We got cedar trees every 25 feet, so that's not a possibility. So you got to select a variety that's going to let you do that. Another thing about apples is you're going to have to prune the fruit. Not only do you prune the tree, most of them are pruned to a central leader system, but you also have got to thin the apples. They'll be overloaded. This particular tree we're looking at right here was overloaded a month ago. It was not pruned, and so what happens to a fruit tree, whether it's an apple or a peach or whatever it is, it's going to prune itself. And the problem with it pruning itself is it's not selective. What we'd like to see is an apple about every 6 inches on the branch. They will get bigger, they will be better. And if they're growing too close together, then they're gonna fall off. There's apples on the ground here under this tree. That pruning can take place when the apple's about the size of my thumb. You just go through and just take off the ones. But you can see this branch right here, which was loaded with apples on these spurs. This is a spur-bearing apple tree, which is best for the home gardener. These spurs have dropped their apples, and they just dropped them all. They didn't keep any of them because the tree was overloaded. And apples grow in clusters. You can get clusters where the apples are touching each other, and that will cause them to rot. And they'll grow big against each other, and they will just shed themselves off the tree. So disease resistant, number one in selecting a cultivar. Thin the fruit so that you control which ones stay and which ones go, and you can pick the best looking fruit when you prune it, where the tree itself doesn't select them in that fashion. It just drops them on the ground to lighten the load. So as you select your cultivars, and this brochure we're talking about has a good section here for selecting cultivars. As I look through it, I would see that Liberty is good for growing in this area, that it's got good fruit on it, and it's resistant. As you look at the resistant chart, it's the most resistant to fire blight and apple rust, powdery mildew, and apple scab. So those are big considerations in selecting, and as you look at the chart, you can see that Enterprise might be a good one to grow with it, that is also a decent apple, and it's got disease resistant. Then you switch over to your rootstocks. As I study the rootstocks, looks like to me that a Geneva rootstock number 202 is resistant to a lot of the diseases that we have in this area. So that would be my combination. Try to find me a Liberty on a Geneva 202 rootstock, and then that starts me off with a chance of avoiding some of these diseases. That just gives you just a little bit about apple trees, and yeah, I know Johnny Appleseed, he sowed seed all over where the settlers were settling down. He had a little different goal in mind. One, he didn't have a truck to haul his apple trees out there with, and so he planted seed, but they were mostly making apple cider out of those apples, and they weren't trying to grow good tasting cultivars like we try to grow in our backyard. Also, as you select rootstocks control the size of the tree. So you want that Geneva 202 I was talking about is a medium sized tree. If you plant apples on seedling rootstock, they're going to grow big. You can't pick them, you can't spray them. Unless you're good at standing on a step ladder, you're not going to be able to do much with that big tree like Grandma used to grow that's sitting out in the field now, that we can get some apples off of it, but we never can get them all because some of them are too high up in the air. So you can select that for the backyard garden and have pretty good luck. But there's some things that you need to understand, as we talked about. Get one of these brochures, study it. Now I promise you, if you go to one of these stores that's selling apple trees around here and tell them you want a Liberty apple tree on Geneva 202 rootstock, they will probably not know what you're talking about. So you need to get your terminology right, and you might need to deal with people that supply apple trees to apple orchards and that kind of thing, so you get that expertise, because it may not exist everywhere that apple trees exist. So we've got apple spray guides, we've got apple literature about how to grow them, but you got to be willing to study a little bit and select some that don't have fire blight and don't have apple rust and all those things. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the problems with not pruning the tree, not thinning out the apples, and a little bit of fire blight. This particular tree right here has got some fire blight. I'm gonna cut it back. What you would do with fire blight a little earlier than this, when you first see it, is cut it about 6 inches below the dead spot. Then you can use some tetramycin or some bactericide like that to try to help control it. But nothing beats selecting varieties that are resistant to it. So I'm gonna cut this branch off right here that's got the fire blight on it. And you can see the fire blight. One of the telltale signs of fire blight is it has a shepherd's crook on the end of it when it's first developing, and it is a serious problem with not just apple trees but with fruit trees in general. On our pruning or our thinning side of it, you see how these apples are growing in clusters right here, and they're touching each other. In fact, this particular one I think has got an extra branch growing through it. Well, when these apples were smaller, we could come in here and take off all but the best one. The ones under the bottom right here don't get much sunlight anyway. And so we could come in here, and then this apple would grow 3 times as big and be nice and healthy, where right now they've all got little spots on them where they've been touching together. You see that rotten spot right there? That's what happens when you let the clusters grow together. And so then folks will bring that apple in my office and say, what can I put on my tree to stop that from happening? And the answer is not a thing. So just keep that in mind. That's pretty close to what I know about apples. There's a whole lot more to the apple story, but you come by the office, we'll sit down and talk about it. Now let's go inside and see what Susan is fixing with apples today.
Welcome back to Garden Delights. I bet now you want to get you an apple tree to plant it. So now let's talk about what we're going to make that's so tasty and it smells wonderful, and this is apple pecan muffins. So I thought about seasoned apples, what would be better than a muffin with apples in it? So what I have, and I'm doing a quick deal today, this is an apple recipe that's very simple because I am using a cake mix. This is a spice cake mix that I'm using, so this is already in the bowl. And what I'm also going to add to that cake mix is a half a teaspoon of, this is pumpkin pie spice. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there because I really want it spicy and I want it to really spice those apples up. You're also going to add 2 eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and put my eggs in. And we're also going to add to this, we're going to add 3/4 cups of apple juice. So I'm going to add that to it. And I am going to go ahead, see if I can set this over here, see if it'll stand. I'm going to go ahead and put the apples in too, and this is about a 1/2 cup finely chopped apples. And you can see they've turned a little bit of brown. That's because when it hits the air, I did drop a little bit of lemon juice on there to hopefully to keep it from turning any browner, because you know when you cook it, they're going to be brown anyway. Now this is about a 1/2 cup of a medium apple. You just about can get that from a chopped up apple on the medium size, so you may want to just think about that. Or if you really want more apple in your muffin, which is another option, you could put a whole apple in there if you really want to, because it's not going to change the recipe. It may just change in the baking time, and it may make the muffin just a little bit moister. And the last thing that I'm going to put in here is some vanilla, and it's a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. Whoops, it's kind of coming out on me. All right, I'll set that over here. And that's all you need for right now. Now what we're going to add eventually is I'm going to add the pecans in it, but I'm going to add them last, and I'm just going to stir them around. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and mix this up together. So I want to get it really moist. So you're going to incorporate all the eggs, the apple juice, and this is going to be a pretty moist batter when we get done. And I am going to kind of hit the edges because I want to make sure the edge of that bowl is mixed up really good. So I may stop the mixing just for a little bit and get my spatula out to the side and work it in. And you want to do this for about 2 minutes, give or take, something in that range, because you want it all mixed in together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it just for a second. And it's really good if you can to scrape your sides, because that's going to bring in all the other batter that you didn't get mixed in really well. So I want to scrape that off the sides, get it toward the middle, get me a paper towel. Let's see if I can keep from making a mess. I'll lay that here. And I'm going to mix some more. And this is about medium speed is all you want. So I'm just going to make sure I hit the edge just a little bit to work in the rest of the powder of the cake mix. And we're just going to mix it. And this is going to make about 24 muffins. And you're going to need to put your oven at 350. And depending on your oven, it's going to probably take about 17 to 20 minutes for it to bake. But you need to watch it, because it could go quicker than 17 to 20 minutes. So you want to make sure you're watching it, because you don't want to overcook these wonderful muffins. And once you get done, and I said it would make 24 muffins, you will want to maybe freeze some and bring them out on one cold morning. If you like coffee, what a wonderful way to start the morning, with a apple pecan muffin and a cup of coffee. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pour in the pecans, and these have been toasted because I want a little bit of a crunch to them, so they've been toasted a little bit. So you want to toast them if you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but I like them because it gives a little crunch to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my mixer on at a very low speed because all I want to do is to blend them in. And you can see they're very, very fine. So when you eat your muffin, you're not going to feel like you're eating a big chunk of a pecan on there. So it's just really well blended in to the batter part of it. So all I want to do is just kind of move the pecans into the batter and make sure I've got everything mixed up really good. And it smells really, really good. So I think I'm good on that part. So I'll see if I can make sure I don't make a big mess. All right, I'm gonna leave this over here to let it drip on that paper towel. And so what you want to do is, this is going to be really simple. We're going to take some muffins, and this will make 12 muffins. And you don't want to fill it too high because if you do, your muffins are going to go all over the place unless you want a really tall muffin. And then it's going to spread all over your pan too. So what I'm going to do is just show you, you need to take they say about 3 tablespoons per muffin. So what I've been doing is I just take my little half cup, 1/4 cup, whatever you have, and I just kind of put a little bit in and kind of watch it. And once I see that it's about half full, I'm going to stop because I know that this mix is going to rise. So what you need to do is just do this, and this just kind of helps it too from getting all over everywhere, and I'll probably make a mess before it's all said and done. But you just want to put enough in there to fill it up. And this is going to make, like I said, 24, so what you're seeing now is about 12. Now, these muffins taste really good to me without the glaze, but we're going to show you how to do it with the glaze. The glaze, once I bake these, the glaze is a cup of powdered sugar and about 3 tablespoons of apple juice, because I really want to have the apples all through it, and about a teaspoon, half a teaspoon of vanilla. And if you feel like it's too loose as far as the liquid part of it, you can always add a little bit more powdered sugar to it. But that's about the ratio that you're going to be doing. And then we're going to take them and we're going to dip them into the mixture once these have cooled off, and it'll have a nice glaze to it. Or you could freeze them just as they are, and then when you get ready to take them out, you could make a glaze and put them on there and warm up just a little bit and put the glaze on them later too. To me, I think they would even freeze better if you didn't have the glaze until you brought them out fresh again. So we're almost there, and you can see this is a lot of batter. So just make sure you don't overfill them. And you'll know it's just about, I don't even have this all the way full, and I don't even get everything out of the little measuring cup either. I just get enough to make sure I'm filling up the little pie tin. Let's see, almost there. And you're going to bake these at 350, again about 17 minutes, 20 minutes, and they're ready to go. So as you can see, I didn't make too big of a mess. That keeps it from cooking on your cupcake pan, because you don't want it to have it all burnt. This is what it kind of looks like, and you can see I didn't fill it up top because I want to make sure it rises, and my goal is to have them just maybe just barely above the little paper tin thing. So that's all we want. So I'm going to put these in the oven. I'm going to bake them, have them ready when Frank comes back, and we'll put a little glaze on them so he'll be ready to try these wonderful apple pecan muffins. See you back in just a little bit. Welcome back to Garden of Lights. Frank is with us, and I just have glazed some of the muffins, Frank, but
right.
I want to show how easy it is. You just dip it in, and once you dip it in, kind of let the excess come off. Then you set it over to the side, and it's going to dry. So it's so simple.
Right.
And to me, this is the easiest way to make it smooth and look good, because you don't have to take a knife or anything else. And really, if you do it right, you don't even get it on your fingers. So there is 3 more.
That would be half the fun.
I know it. I know it. So, you ready to try one?
Let's try one.
Let's do it. Here you go. They smell good, don't they?
Yep. Can't get it.
You can't get your...
Get a hold of my paper.
Got it?
Should have rehearsed.
Yeah, we should have.
All right.
I'm going to taste from the bottom up. That is good.
Good. The legs part's good too.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tear a little bit of my paper towel if you need it.
All right. We had,
It doesn't overpower it.
we had a pretty good crop of apples this year. I noticed people up here in the park are trying to figure out how to get the ones out of the top of the tree.
I can imagine.
But they look pretty good. But if you're going to grow apples, you got to pay attention to your maintenance schedule so you can keep the insects off of them. And
You
all
do.
that.
You sure do.
But they grow well around here.
They do. They sure do. So check out the website for this wonderful recipe. And Frank and I will see you next time on Garden Delights.
And you know what they always say?